First, Mikko, I would like to start with you. We've just seen 4 pieces from your company's varied and really exciting repertoire. Can you talk about how you chose this particular program for this particular place?
Well, it's specially made for Pillow. Well, you know, it's always very interesting when you look at the space, you look at the company, and I wanted to give one substantial work with live music. So that's the Bach Cello Suite, much longer because I knew we were having a couple Jakobson miniatures and excerpt from the playlist. So I thought the balance needed to have something a little bit more bigger and longer piece. And then I love contrasts. It's like a great meal from an appetizer to all around. So and I like you to get to know Boston Ballet. We do many things, you know. We do the big classics, the neoclassical, and really contemporary work. So I thought it was a fun way to introduce Boston Ballet to the Pillow audience after 15 years.
We do really appreciate it, I think. So I actually, one more question for you, Mikko, before I have a couple for the dancers. You just met the Jakobson miniatures. They are quite the contrast. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the staging of those with the ballet, with the Boston Ballet dancers. Pam mentioned how you met Jakobson's widow, and that's how you came to know more of his works. But like, just fundamentally, how did the dancers come to learn those pieces?
Yeah, it's very interesting because I go a little bit back. Leonid Jakobson was so influential in Russian dance, yet he was so suppressed. The generation that you got to know, Makarovas and Baryshnikovs, they became those amazing dancers because they were exposed to his process and his artistry early on as young dancers. They were not like the generation before them of the Russian dancers, and because of that, they had the ability to adapt and go and take the ballet world and lead it by example. So for us, it was really 1159 because the lineage is almost broken. We had two original cast members from Becket and Rodin came to teach it for us, and they were just about to return to Russia and retire. And they passed it on to Larissa Ponomarenko, who is one of our ballet mistresses, and really was a great ballerina with the Boston Ballet. Absolutely incredible person, incredible pro. And Larissa is now carrying that heritage further.
And as a follow-up, are there more? We saw these 2, but are there others that are in your rep or that are coming into your rep?
Well, Mr. Derek Dunn just gave us an exercise how to do something special. He just danced the solo called Vestris that was created for Baryshnikov, 1969 International Ballet Competition. Jakobson wanted to showcase this young, talented dancer, and in our second to last program this spring, we did 3 Jakobson works, the Rodin, Becket, and Vestris, which was this soul that was created for Baryshnikov. So those are the 3 works that we have in a rep currently, and I'm in the early stages of starting a process of reviving some more of those miniatures.
Something to look forward to. Derek, tonight we saw you in Bach Cello Suites, and I think according to the program you also sometimes are performing in Playlist this weekend. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the difference between performing those 2 works, like what sort of energy and focus they require, ways that they're maybe challenging in different ways and exciting and sort of blissful in other ways.
Yeah. So like you said, tonight I did Bach Cello Suites by Jorma Elo, and both of these choreographers have had huge influences in the ballet world today, and especially with their more neoclassical work. And while they're similar in ways, they require different focuses. Working with Jorma, he was very much about angles and direction changes, and his work, especially in this piece, is more abstract, so it's very open to interpretation. And then when we got into the room with Bill for playlist, he came into the room and it was like, all right, we're gonna have a party on stage. And he encourages us to, mix it up every night, play with the musicality, and, do different phrasing while still sticking to his vocabulary. Both pieces are incredibly difficult to do, stamina-wise and physically, but they also both require a lot of mental focus. But both pieces, I think you have to pace yourself to make sure that you can, give energy and push and pull back at times to make sure you have that dynamic.
Thank you. And actually, that's a beautiful segue into my question for Chyrstyn, because you were talking about pushing and playing with the musicality. And Chyrstyn was the soloist, or in the duet in the second movement of Playlist. And that's all that's one of the things that I see when you're dancing is that play. But also something that I notice of you and all of your colleagues, all of your female colleagues, is you are so strong. Your technique is so clear, but it's what you do with it that's so powerful. And so I wonder if you, and also I just think y'all are so daring. You just go for it, fearlessly. So I'm wondering if you could talk about your approach to dancing generally, to dancing on point, to dancing in that Forsyth piece. Just thinking about all of that.
Dance is my center of joy. So I kind of hone in on that when I'm working on these things. Otherwise, dance can be kind of scary because it's risky. You're on this tiny platform as a woman in point shoes. You're on these tiny platforms, and there's the chance you could slip. There's the chance you could fall over. There's things like that. And if you think about those things, if you think about how hard it is and all the work that you've had to put in it and how exhausting it is, and if your feet hurt, it makes you not want to do it. But there's the music, and they're the choices that you can make and the way that you can, I love, especially in Playlist, to make myself laugh. I mean, it's how I get through it, and I like to surprise myself, and I like the whole opening sequence of the location duet is it's a stylized improv, basically, and I change it every night, and sometimes I'll be okay, today I want to be a bird. So yesterday afternoon, I was literally doing this on stage because that's what I felt like doing in that moment. It's finding my joy. And I think that speaks for all of us as dancers, because if we weren't able to tap into that, those choices and the playfulness, then, why do we do this?
You can really see that in watching in the interactions between the dancers as well, whether it's dancing with a partner or a group of women on stage or a group of men dancing together. And I'm curious about that playful spirit. Is that something that sort of emerges from the choreography? Is that something that emerges from the relationships that you have in the studio and personally? Maybe could you talk a little, either of you or both of you, about that playful energy that we see throughout the concert, really?
I think especially in Playlist, a lot of that comes from the energy that William Forsythe brings into the room, especially when he's working on that ballet, because the way that he talks to us, he's very enthusiastic and energetic and da-da-da-da-da, and feet, and and so it brings that kind of excitement out of you and makes you want to, stay on your toes. And then also it comes from the relationships we have with each other, because I feel there's not a negative energy in our company, which I think the ballet world has this cloud that's over it, that people think that it's a really negative and competitive and evil place, but it's not, especially here. And so I think that we have the freedom to smile at our peers. All of our peers are in the wings watching us dance and supporting us, and it makes it that much better.
It's the company philosophy. You have to dance on the edge, and we insist that they take those risks, so they're so strong that they can be vulnerable, because that's when the art and the artist is interesting. Yes,
we see it. We see it. Mikko, I have another question for you. On this program, we see the fruits of two choreographic partnerships. So the first piece comes from the resident choreographer Jorma Elo, and the last piece from William Forsythe, with whom Boston Ballet is now in this 5-year partnership. Could you talk about the ways such partnerships fit within your vision for the company, and whether you have visions for future partnerships?
Yeah. Jorma has been now with us for 15 years, and he's done an incredible job because he paved the way with our dancers' approach to contemporary dance. And as you can see in this particular work, he uses ballet as a vocabulary. Earlier, he used less ballet. And because of that, when we danced Killian eventually, it was like they were doing contemporary dance like the contemporary dancers, not like ballet dancers trying to do contemporary dance. So, and his journey has been tremendous. And after about 8-9 years, I said, Jorma, let's not explore that. I need more neoclassical work in a repertoire. And the Bach Cello Suite was the first one of those where he went back classical, and I really enjoyed it. And I have to say, his relationship with the dancers, what he gets out of them, it's tremendous. And I've seen the dancers develop through his work. And then William Forsythe, I mean, he's the #1 choreographer in the world. Yes, we are in the middle of this 5-year partnership. Actually, he threw it out the window. He said, forget it, this is my new home. This is my new company, so we haven't really talked about it, so but that's the deal. And you know what? Guess I am the luckiest guy in the world. Boston Ballet and our dancers. He can work anywhere, and he has chosen us. So it's something I could have never asked in my biggest dreams. People come to me and say, so how did you do it? How did you leverage? And I said, no. I created a company with the kind of instruments that he wants to work. So he created the space. He entered the space. Nobody pulls Mr. William Forsythe anywhere, I'll tell you that.
So the question is about the difference between when they perform their home concerts, they do them in a huge opera house, and here the audience is significantly smaller, and what's the difference? What's the experience? How does the experience differ?
I don't know that the experience is different. I remember thinking tonight, again, I like to make myself laugh on stage, so I kind of let out a little laugh on stage, and I was like, ooh, I wonder if they can hear me, because you guys are like so much closer. And that's something that I don't think about when I'm in the opera house. But, we're still like dancing for each other and dancing for our audiences. It's the same thing,
There's no orchestra pit here, so you're closer, the distance, the intimacy is even more. And that's the big advantage we have in the opera house, because it was a vaudeville theater. Even when it's 2,550 seats, people are close. And dance was meant for 700 to 900 were the big houses. Then the Paris Opera came, 1,243 seats. That's the Ballet Garnier. So, it was meant to have more intimacy, because it's about your experience, what takes place here. It's not the importance, it's not here. It's you who's important.